Without much ado, I would like to introduce our guest speaker today, Tobechukwu Samuel, who is an accomplished back-end engineer and banking solution specialist with 9 years of experience in fintech industry, working with C#.NET framework, JavaScript, React, and SQL to build large and scalable enterprise applications. In addition to his strong hands-on programming skills, he has a solid understanding of data structure, databases. Samuel is proficient in testing and security, as well as following Agile principles. He has a strong background in management and leadership, excellent interpersonal skills, and a knack for problem solving. He is a fast learner, capable of quickly mastering new skills, technologies, and roles. And the Glasgow branch joined me to welcome our guest speaker, Tobechukwu Samuel, for today's webinar. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Direct. Thank you, Engineer Direct. So much elated fact. I feel you have praised me so much. But without much ado, I'll be introducing what we'll be discussing today. Please confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen, yeah.
Okay, so like the anchor person spoke, I would be discussing API integration with payment systems with you guys, and we'll be looking at ways of unlocking entrepreneurship opportunities for we engineers using this payment systems that we'll be integrating with API. So like it has mentioned, okay, sorry, my slide is not moving. Okay, it does. Okay, so I'll be walking you through a little bit of an intro to this. Then we'll look at payment gateways, API technologies, then business opportunities around these payment gateways and APIs. Then we'll round up with some conclusions. We'll be looking at, in the introduction, I will be playing a video which I feel would be very, very crucial for us engineers when we talk about going into entrepreneurship business. So let me play this video while we pay attention to the video. I think it's around 4 minutes or so.
Sorry, we can't hear the audio.
Sorry, it's not audible.
Yeah.
It's not playing.
No, it's playing,
Yes.
but without the audio.
Without the audio.
Oh, right.
Could you play? I think if you can.
Can you hear anything now?
No, I think you need to reshare your screen and then share your window, not just the presentation. I'm not sure how you shared.
Okay.
Stop sharing and then share your home window screen.
Okay, let me try and play it directly. Let's see. Please confirm if you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can see your screen here.
Is it audible?
No, it is not. No.
Okay. Engineer Kura, can you share from your own? Let's see if you can play from your end. Are you able to try from your end?
I'm trying to do that right away.
Okay.
Are you able to hear anything? No.
I think it's a general problem. Maybe it's
Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. 1 minute. Are you hearing?
Yeah, it started playing.
Yeah, maybe you make it a bit louder. Yeah.
It's not play. The voice is gone. The audio is no longer there. Engineer Kura, can you hear me? There's no audio on it again. Hello, can anyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. I
Yeah.
think when
Maybe you can
sharing it,
proceed without the video. I don't know. Maybe we can, somebody else can try.
Come again, but we're able to hear the audio. Maybe when you were trying to probably increase the volume was when it stopped.
Okay, I'll try again.
yeah, when you want to share, at the bottom there should be an option view button, and I think you can share high quality sound. Yeah, optimize video clip.
It's not playing.
Still without sound. Yeah.
Okay, it started playing. It stopped. Yeah, it started. No, it has a very low quality. And
I think you need to share the sound as well. There is if you check the, I don't know. Can anyone hear me?
yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I think there's a button, share sound, in the bottom left corner of the share selection window.
Yeah, just when you click
the
to
sound
share.
wasn't okay.
Yeah, that's when you click the share.
So the sound wasn't okay, right?
No, it wasn't okay. You can stop sharing, and the moment you click the share screen button, at the bottom you will see share high quality, optimize for video clip. Yeah, and then you make sure you click and share sound. There's share sound on the left bottom when you want to share the video.
Exactly.
Can
All
you
right, okay.
can you try that? Yeah, so
yeah, I'm doing that now. Okay.
good, yeah. Just tick the box, yeah.
When we launched Paystack 3 years ago,
that's fine.
Nigeria as a country was doing about $35 million in online payments every month. Last month, Paystack alone did $100 million just in the month.
This is Shola Akinade, the CEO and co-founder of Paystack at his Tribe conference in 2019. Just 2 years after their launch, Paystack was processing over $100 million in a single month. This is the story of a Nigerian fintech startup that started as an idea to make accepting online payments easier for Nigerian businesses, to being acquired by Stripe in a deal reportedly worth over $200 million. This was in 2002. The co-founders, Shola Akinlade and Ezra Olubi, met at a software exhibition in their first year of university, and they became friends ever since then. After graduating with BScs in computer science from Babcock University, they went on to do other things. While Shola was consulting for a bank, he realized that there was a way to charge a card from his system directly without redirecting to InterSwitch or any payment gateways. Knowing Ezra's background and interest in online payments, he contacted him to join him in building the company that would later be known as Paystack. This is now 2015. Paystack was founded. The first thing Shola and Ezra did was to apply for Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a tech startup accelerator where companies like Stripe, Airbnb, Reddit, Dropbox, and so much more were incubated. So getting into YC was like really massive for them. This wasn't after they were rejected the first time they applied, but they got in the second time, and this made Paystack the first Nigerian company to be accepted into Y Combinator. After being accepted into YC and received funding of $120,000, Paystack was launched in 2016. Later that year, after YC, they got a list of investors that were interested in them. They started speaking with them and were able to raise $1.3 million from Tencent, Comcast Ventures, and a lot of angel investors. In 2018, Paystack raised $8 million in its Series A funding round, which was led by Stripe and attracted investments from Visa and Tencent. Working in the finance space meant they needed to interact with banks a lot, and the banks just saw them as two boys who didn't know what they were doing. But as Paystack began to grow and get a large customer base, the banks saw that people preferred using Paystack services over theirs, and it didn't take long before they had a foothold in the country for online payments. In October 2018, Paystack expanded its services to Ghana, and later in July 2020 to South Africa.
Stripe is acquiring Nigerian payments company Paystack for what sources tell me is roughly $200 million. I spoke to Stripe CEO Patrick Collison about the deal just now. He was bullish on Africa, pointing to massive growth in internet and smartphone users.
In October 2020, they were acquired by US payment giant Stripe for over $200 million, making it the biggest acquisition in Nigeria. According to Stripe, this acquisition will give Paystack resources to develop new products, support more businesses in the African payments market. About the acquisition, Shola said, "I am driven by the mission to accelerate payments on the continent, and I am convinced that Stripe will help us get there faster. It is a very natural move." The story of Paystack is a really inspiring one, and it shows that through determination, anything is possible.
If one of the most sophisticated companies in Silicon Valley can acquire a company from our ecosystem, like that is just going to unlock a lot of opportunities. This is going to tell people that you can make things and you can like it can work. You can build your dreams and you can get it done.
If you enjoyed the video or learned something from it,
okay, Engineer Kura, we can continue.
When we launched
Okay, so you can stop sharing so that I will share. Please confirm when you see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen, please.
Okay, just a quick reflection on the video we just watched. To me, I think is an inspirational one. From the video, we could see the two guys who just graduated from the same school and started working. One of them worked was working, the Shola guy was working in a bank and saw a loophole or a shortfall or shortcoming in the payment system or what I would call payment gap. And he had to quickly exploit that opportunity with his guy. So sort of a collaboration between him and the guy, and they created Paystack. As at 2019, the Paystack was valued at $200 million. That was why they were acquired at that amount, and they were processing over $100 million transaction. I think to me, it's a very big one, and that is what so many of us, I wouldn't say so many, all of us are looking up to. We're looking up to own our own businesses, looking up to do something different. So if we look at, I think there are key words that I've listed keywords or what's led to that particular height. In what they achieved, I could see idea, I could see vision, inspiration, creativity, process, development, then growth, which all of them is surrounding innovation. So we'll be looking at what we can learn from payment system. Whatever business you enter today, you notice that for you to cash out, for you to raise money while working from home, or for you to sleep and money is entering your account, you have to be doing a business that is present online and people are checking out from your store, making payments. So that's why I decided that we should look into payment system. But payment system can actually work without you integrating it to payment gates. Sorry, applications can't really work without you integrating that application through API to a payment gateway. So we'll be looking at what payment gateway is while we proceed. So what is a payment gateway? A payment gateway is a portal, an online portal, which allows merchants to accept electronic payments via payment modes. And what are payment modes? Payment modes are, for instance, cards, USSD, bank transfer, but the most popular of all the payment modes is the card, which virtually everybody uses to make transaction online. So what does this payment gateway do? It transmits and processes card information to complete online transactions. For us to know more about payment gateways, we need to review this key terminologies, which is the e-commerce website or e-commerce, web services, and payment process. So let's look at what an e-commerce or e-commerce website is. I am sure many of us understand what an e-commerce website is, because virtually everyone here would have bought one or two things from maybe Konga in Nigeria, or Jumia in Nigeria, or Gigi in Nigeria, and so many of them. And maybe in the international markets, we talk about Amazon. These are examples of an e-commerce site. So the e-commerce site is there as an online marketplace where where merchants, and when we say merchants, we mean people like me and you that have something to sell, displays our products, while people like me and you can also go and buy it with our cards. So what is a web service? A web service is needed because you can't have an e-commerce website that is not talking to a web server. So a web service is a software that enables two or more machines to interact over the network. So according to W3C, it's a software system that supports interoperable machine-to-machine interaction over a network. The web service is a platform independent, meaning that you can actually build an application using different languages. Maybe for someone like myself, I develop softwares using .NET, that's C#.NET. Why some other person like maybe Engineer Okura could be working with Python, and maybe Engineer Direct is working with Java, and three of us are working on the same application. For this to be possible, we have to use something called a web service or API, which I'll be talking about later. Without using something like web service, it means that we have to only use one language so that the application will understand what we're doing. So let's look at payments process. For a payment gateway, there is need to have a payment process, and the payment process is nothing but transaction between the user, which is a customer, and a merchant, that's the owner of the product. And it involves the user bringing his accounts, maybe the person that will be debited at the end of the transaction, and the merchant account, which will be credited at the end of the transaction. So let's look at the flow of this payment process. So when a customer comes to an online store or an e-commerce site, he places an order. The order goes to hit the merchant server. The merchant server sends the request through a payment gateway. That's the merchant server would send the amount, the email address of the sender, date, and all the parameters needed through the payment gateway, and the payment gateway would process it, sends it to the bank. The role of this bank is to validate that the customer account exists and the amount that this transaction is coming for actually exists in that person's bank account. If the available balance is enough, it will credit the merchant account. We're assuming it's successful, it credits the merchant account, and the response goes back to the payment gateway, back through the merchant server, then back to the customer, who gets an alert that the transaction was successful, hence he can go home with the product he has purchased. So that's how a payment system works, or the payment process flow. Then let's look at who needs a payment gateway. Virtually everybody needs a payment gateway. We could say that we could divide the two major persons there as merchant and buyer. These are the most important parties involved. The merchant is the person that sells the goods, or that displays he's the person that displays these products on the e-commerce site, while a buyer is the person that comes to purchase this particular product, which is either online or offline. But it's also important that any parties can actually make this transaction happen. Even if a merchant or buyer, it can be a buyer in another platform. So advantages of payments gateway for customers. Remember that you can actually do transaction without using your cards. So that is why there might be need to talk about advantages. Otherwise, there can be a situation where you want to transact, maybe you go to a store, you want to transact, or still online, you can actually want to do transaction online and you don't have to use your card. You probably use just your transfer. You go through your internet banking, pay them, send them your receipts, and they will credit you. But there is an advantage of using payment gateway. The advantage is that it is very, very secure. And most times, most of the payment gateway uses two-factor authentication, or OTP, such that even if another person initiates the transaction, you will get alerts on your phone or your email. If we want to compare this with ordinary bank transfer, we can see that in bank transfer, you might not get this alerts depending on who takes over your account to do transaction or takes over your system to do transaction. But one of the most important benefits is that it's very, very convenient in that for 24 hours, anybody can go online to shop and use his card to purchase products. It's also easy and user-friendly, such that once you log into an e-commerce website, if you reach where you want to check out, you just put in your details and it directs you to payment gateway and you get value for what you are paying for. So these are the popular payment gateways, which we know. I think the most common of all these are these three: Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. I forgot to put Paystack here, but I think we'll be doing our demo with Paystack because it's our own, the Nigerian own. So the next we'll look at is API. Because our topic is around API integration, there is need for us to talk about API. Earlier, we spoke about web service. We said that web service is a software that provides a platform for two machines to interact with each other. An example of a web service is the API. And what is an API? An API is, or as we know, is application programming interface. Just like the web service, it provides an interface for two or more machines or softwares to interact with each other. Just like I said, two people can be working on the same project with different languages, and the only way it can be possible is through an API. Such API uses protocols such like GET, POST, and stuff to communicate. So somebody comes to browse through a computer to make a request to a server. He sends a GET request and he receives a response. This one is covering. I can't see the below of this. Okay, but if you can see my screen clearly, when the response is successful, you get something like OK response, that's 200. So let's look at a simple model of an API. An example model of an API or how an API works is this. We're going to use a restaurant as an example to illustrate how API works. So in a restaurant, we have, sorry, a moment. Okay. Okay, so in a restaurant, we have a customer that walks into a restaurant. We have the menu, we have the order, we have the kitchen, we have requests. So when somebody walks into a restaurant, the person is a customer. The first thing he does is to request for menu or request for food, but that request has to go through the menu. The waiter presents you with a menu. You check what you want. You check whether it's rice or salad that you want. You place a request for rice. Now, the request is sent to the kitchen by the waiter. So in this case now, the person that comes is the customer. The request he is placing is the order. The menu that was presented to him is what we call the application. And what processes that, or the protocol that will enable him to understand what he wants, is the API. Then the waiter sends the request to the kitchen. Then when the kitchen food is ready, the waiter now sends it back to the API or to the waiter, who is the API. He processes it and sends it back as a response to the customer. So that's an analogy to an API. So what are the types of API? API. We have RESTful API, SOAP API, and ASP.NET API. But this is a legacy API, not really common. So the most common APIs we have are the REST API and the SOAP API. The SOAP API is the oldest of all of them. Even though the name is Simple Objects Access Protocol, it's not really as simple as it is. It's very, very heavy and difficult to handle and has a lot of security issues and a lot of strict protocols. Because of the shortfall in the SOAP API, there was needs for modern technologies to invent RESTful API. And REST API is regarded as representational state transfer. It uses JSON. I'm sure most of us may have heard of JSON, JSON, which is very lightweight and very fast in communication. So in modern time now, APIs that are in use are basically the REST API. Nobody goes for SOAP API. It's only in legacy application that you see SOAP API in use. So if you really want to know the difference between SOAP API and REST API, you look at it at this. We'll be analyzing this structure to define how SOAP API is different from REST API. SOAP API has additional feature, which is the SOAP standard, which you must follow. But in REST API, that particular section is not present. That is what makes it very simple. And that is why it's read as a lightweight API. And that is what most applications use. You can see that Facebook, LinkedIn, GitHub, Twitter makes use of REST API instead of this older one. So in API, there is something called methods. What methods actually is the protocol that is being used in API. There are 4 major methods used in APIs, or some people call it HTTP verb. So we have post, get, put, and delete. The post enables you to create or insert data into the database, or otherwise known as add new resource. Meanwhile, get helps you to read or select an object from a database, otherwise known as read resource. Put enables you to update data in the database, while delete, as the name implies, enables you to delete a resource in the database. So finally, on API, we have HTTP status codes. There are about 5 series of, we have 5 series, 100 series, 200 series, 300 series, 400 series, and 500 series. So when you are dealing with an API, if an API returns something like 100 or 102 or anything 100, anything that starts with 1, you know that it is giving you an information. If the API response returns anything 200, maybe 200 or 204, 203, it means that it's a success. For instance, if you see 200, 200 means okay, everything is fine. 204 means content has been created, as the case may be. Then if you see 300 or anything that starts with 3, it means that you are being rerouted from, this is the one the hackers use. You are being rerouted from the rightful server, or either is maliciously or not, you are being rerouted from the main application to another site. Then 400, anything from 400 and above is actually something negative happening. For instance, if your server returns 400, it means that a bad request is being sent, which means the server at the back will not respond, or the server at the back is seeing it as something malicious or unexpected. If you see something like 401, it means unauthorized, something like that. If you see 500, 500 means internal server error, and so on. I think this will be the end of the talking section or presentation session. Then we'll be looking at a little demo I'll be doing using API and a payment gateway. So in the demo that I want to do, I'll be using Paystack, even though I did not consider Paystack in the list of the APIs I mentioned earlier. But I still want to use a Paystack because it's the Nigerian gateway that we know. If you are going into any business and you want to use payment gateway, I'm sure one of them you have to think of is Paystack because it's owned by a Nigerian or is being operated in Nigeria. For instance, aside from Paystack, which is very well known, because when you are building an application or when you have an e-commerce website, usually during the payment point, you are being rerouted to the payment gateway. If the customer doesn't know that payment gateway, he might be afraid that he's been hacked or he's been attacked. So there is need to use a payment gateway that is known by everybody. Maybe something like MasterCard, Paystack. For Nigeria, something like Flutterwave. These days, Jumia has their own payment gateway called Jumia Pay. So you might want to consider any of this. So what I want us to achieve in our demo is to create, first of all, we're supposed to have an account with Paystack. If you are going to have if you are going to do a business with any payment gateway, you need to sign up with the payment gateway. So I've signed up with Paystack. Let me share the account I signed up on. So I've signed up with Paystack. This is the account for a certain website, a web application I'm doing with someone. So if this is their interface. And if you look at the interface very well, you can see test mode. It shows that we're doing tests. So it's not live yet. It's not in production. Whatever thing we are doing now will not debit my account. Neither will it credit my account because it's a test. Now, if you are going to be dealing with a payment gateway, they will give you a secret key. So I'll copy the secret key for my test. Now, if you must be the one to implement anything around payment gateway, you need to go to their documentation to study how their payment gateway works. For instance, if we go online and put Paystack documentation, Paystack doc, we'll see how to integrate with their payment gateway. But without wasting our time, I've already done all I need. But just for a quick guide, these are processes that you need to put in place or that you need to actually know. After signing up with a Paystack gateway or Paystack payment gateway, you go to their get started. It will take you to where you see this documentation. When you go to where you see this documentation, you will see something like this. This is what is called an API. This particular URL is an endpoint to initialize a transaction. When you see something like post, it means that if you call this API and pass some parameter to it, it will push the parameter to this payment gateway. So at the moment, this is my payment gateway. I could go to transactions to monitor transactions that have entered my account on test environments. If you look at it very well, you can see that there are 2 transactions on this payment portal. You can see that there is one with 34 Naira, there is one with 4,500 Naira, and they have reference and other details. So how do we debit somebody's account to credit our account on Paystack so that Paystack will credit our bank? Sorry, we credit my bank account It is through this. So when you have filled some forms Paystack will give you, if I'm going to production, if I change this from test to production or what we call live, Paystack will request for my bank account such that whenever somebody makes a payment, it will rather credit my bank account. But for this test purpose, there is no live account on it. So we're going to use some tools, like I've mentioned here. We're going to make use of payment gateway. We're going to make use of Postman testing tool. We're going to make use of JSON request payload. Then we're going to make use of a dummy card from Paystack to complete a transaction. So let's look at how to initialize payments. So I don't know how many of you have dealt with Postman or have actually made an API call before now. But let's look at, this is a Postman. A Postman is a tool that is used by testers or developers to test their API. If you remember when I went to the API Paystack website, you could see this URL that I call the endpoint. This is the API URL. So if you have a Postman testing tool, you put it inside this place, change this request type to post, then pass in the information that you want to pass. Then for that particular test, there was need to have it authorized. You have to put the Paystack secret code here, without which you will not be allowed to make a successful payment. Remember that if you are doing the live one, they will change this, give you a different one for live environments. So even if by any means my video has gone public, I'm still safe because it's not my live environment that I'm using. So I want to make it.
Okay, sorry, if you can just round the demo within 5 minutes because we're running late. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm almost done. So I want to make a payment. Let's say I want to pay 4,700 naira. So it truncates the last two because they deal with naira and kobo. And maybe I want there should be a payment reference. This is a payment reference. This is the currency that you want to pay in with. So if I click on send, if everything is successful, it will return a response. You can see the type of response, 200, which means okay. This is the response I get. If you copy this response, you can take it to the browser. If I put it on the browser, I'll check out. This is also called checkout URL. This is a dummy test, so it's not asking for real card. It's only asking you to click success. If you click success, pay, it completes the transaction. It's actually redirecting me to a URL because whenever a payment is completed, it's supposed to take you to a different site. But I've added this website as a return URL. So this payment that's completed, I can go back to Paystack and refresh. I'm supposed to see the 4,700. So look at the 4,700. So I've also did a simple application this afternoon. This is a C# environment where you can write the actual code. For now, I think you don't need to know how to write a code, but I just did it for demo's sake. All I think we need to understand is the opportunity around payment system and APIs, so that when you have a business idea, you can actually know how to integrate or what it takes to integrate an API. So this is the application I just did this afternoon. If you go to home, it will ask you to put in your, once you initialize payment, it will ask you to put in your email address, the amount that you want to be paid. Let me check change it to 66,640 naira. Then reference, this can be my reference, Naira NG. If I click on this, it's on debug mode. If it is successful, not even so, if it proceeds, it will take me to where I will check out. For me to check out, I'll click on success. Tells me I'll be debited 6,640 naira. I'll say yes. Then it goes successful and reroutes me to another site. If I had checked my email address, which interestingly, I didn't open my email address here. But if I open my email address, I am supposed to get an alert for this. You can see the alerts for each of these transactions I just did. So that's how you'll be communicated whenever somebody comes to your site and makes a payment to your card or through his card account. So that's a little demo I want us to look at. So let's finalize. So for us to round up, we will be looking at what are the business opportunities around payment systems. So we already know that payment gateways are an asset to your business, and they're actually an asset because they ensure safe, smooth transaction and reduces loss associated with late payments. So knowing or having this at the back of our mind, what then can we do with this payment gateway? One of the most common of all of them is the e-commerce business. Recently, I started working with a firm that is trying to push a product to the market. The product they want to push is a store whereby any tech person can display his products. If you have an ebook, you can push it there. If you have a particular skill, you can push it there. And those skills and tools will be monetized. So if you have such kind of business idea of something people would want in future, can actually create an online portal and integrating it through a payment gateway. Whenever somebody comes to your store and verifies and is okay, the person needs to pay you, then you pay a token to the payment gateway. And that is how the payment gateway makes their money. Then you make your own money. So another environment where this payment gateway is used is in the real estate industry. For instance, these days, there might be need for instance, to have tenants not to actually pay directly to their landlords. So you can actually have a business such that you provide a payment gateway between the landlord and the tenants. That is an example of business idea which relies on API and payment system. In transportation system also, we have seen the need for a payment gateway. For instance, last year, BRT Lagos introduced a card. What it means is that if you are going to enter any BRT in Lagos, you don't even need to pay cash again, just like you can do in Uber and any other transport system. The same is seen around food services. Some food services now run on Jumia. So at the comfort of your home, you just make your payments and get food order at your home. Same thing happens for stores. You can provide a store whereby people make payment through payment gateways. So in conclusion, I still would come back to this image that I shared earlier, which talks about innovation. There are a lot of ideas already. Or there are a lot of business processes already in place, but for us to be able to do better, we probably need to innovate on the existing ideas or existing processes to do something better. So I see this particular presentation as an inspiration or eye-opener for us to know that there are a lot we can do to actually cash out, if I'll use the term cash out, but it will require either collaboration or require us to go our way to do something different for us to get to that our targets, which I believe all of us are looking up to. So I think that's where I'll bring the presentation to an end. Thank you.
You are muted. You are muted.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Samuel, for this insightful webinar on API integration in payment systems. At the moment, we don't have any question in the chat box, but I'm just wondering if any person has a pressing question that we can take. Yeah, but while you think about that, yeah, so we have Engineer Dr. Oluseun Adediran, our immediate past chairman, with a question. Yeah, thank you. Can you unmute yourself, please, and ask your question? Yeah.
Thank you, Engineer Derek. Thank you, Engineer Samuel, for that wonderful presentations. Thank you for taking your time to come out today to support the NSC Glasgow branch. My chairman, Dr. Engineer Stephen, and all protocol duly observed. My question is, can you advise on some of the available source code, the kind of, maybe there are some platform for the open code for, for this kind of the API, because typically I would expect that most of the tools, they are always available and there's always going to be, so that we don't start to reinvent the wheel from the start. If you don't mind to advise on that. Thank you.
I think you can, Samuel, you can unmute yourself. Yeah. Or maybe do we take both? Maybe we can just take all the questions. Have another person. It's without name, Techno BFC 6. If that's you, please could you just unmute yourself and ask your question, and our guest speaker will answer all of them. Yep. Yeah, go ahead, please. So it seems there is we can't hear any question from
just one question for me.
Yeah, Engineer Wale.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank the speaker. It's an amazing lecture, which I've learned a lot today. Just one question for me is, I believe is a common question for everybody, not just for this platform. I mean, around the world, hacking. So how can we, the ordinary user, spot hacking, especially our lovely country, Nigeria? Because you would notice that there's so many hacking these days in Nigeria that sometimes they can even send you a test. They said once you receive a test, you click that link, that means you are gone. Your account is empty. So, and sometimes when you report to the government, your money is gone. So how can we, what is the sign? What can we see to prevent us from getting caught in this hacking stuff, because people are lost in money, seriously, in the bank? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Engineer Wale. Back to our guest speaker, please. Yeah. Hello, Samuel. Yeah, you can unmute yourself and possibly respond to the questions. Yeah.
Coming back to the question Dr. Adediran, if I mentioned the name correctly. So what we actually have at the moment are custom management systems that can enable you to build something, but not necessarily. I'm not sure there is any open source applications that you can just go and start up something. This presentation as an idea or as an inspiration to start looking at how to do business with these payment systems using API. Not necessarily us, or not necessarily you going into development or going into creating your own application without learning, trying to learn a lot about how this works. What we can actually see out there is something like Wix. You can see from Microsoft, you can see Power Apps, but they are still not free. So it's not really an open source system. Maybe a bit free, but not really open source. But to do the real thing, you might need to go a little, go out of your way to learn how to do a little coding or involve a developer to achieve a payment in a successful payment integration. So for the second question, security on our applications. When you talk about phishing, it's a topic on its own. There are different ways these malicious hackers try to intrude or try to get into your emails or links to tempt you to either open an application or visit their sites, but not necessarily going into your bank account. So, but what I will advise is this: don't store essential details like card details on your browser, because what they actually do is they inject JavaScript on your browser such that when you click on it, it goes to retrieve stored data, maybe in form of cookies, and retrieve all the information inside your browser. With that information, they can visit your bank through the password that you have saved on your browser. So if you want to be secured, whenever you are using your browser, don't store informations like bank PIN, bank card. That's what I will advise. Then you can't really tell what sites are very safe or not, but make sure you don't store such important information on public browsers. That's my answer to the second question.
Yeah, thank you for these good answers to the question. We have a question in the chat box, but I think someone has replied to that. A question by Brave One: how do the companies like Paystack make their money? Is it from commissions? And someone said yes, through commissions. Do you agree with that?
Yes, they are through commission. I think they charge 2% of any transaction that is less than a certain amount, but not like, for instance, a transaction of like 2,000 naira, they don't charge more than 100 naira, and they have a cap. I think the cap may be like 200 naira.
Okay.
So
yeah.
just by commission.
Yeah, thank you so much. Mr. Chairman, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much, Engineer Dennis. So thank you, Samuel, for your presentation. I saw the payment process you shared, and I was wondering, just referencing what Engineer Wale talked about security and some money, people getting over smart, outsmarted, and then their money goes away. So why is it that some payments, done through that went through the process you have shown can not be traced? Because I was listening to a program that some people can actually find a way of even though it passes through all the payment processes, still if you wanted to retrieve your money or an investigation, where does it really at what point do they really manipulate that it cannot really be traced? That's my question, if you get.
If I get you clear, you are still talking about losing money through your card. Okay, something I noticed, not even recently, but it happens frequently. If you sign up to any e-commerce site, not necessarily, if you sign up to any subscription sites like maybe Showmax, or you can name them, most times they put you on recurring payments and you would not know. So every month they are charging you and you'll be wondering why your money is missing or why your money is leaving your account without knowing. That one could be seen as malicious, something malicious, but it's not necessarily malicious. It's happening because you signed up by yourself. Then secondly, I want to chip in that your card is not really that safe. If I have access to your card, maybe your Visa card, if I snap the front and back of it, I can go and do transaction without your notice. That's an important information I feel I should pass here. So always, if I get any card from the bank, what I do is I go to the back of the card, scratch off the CVV. But if I scratch it off, I write it down somewhere. With that, you have protected that card. If not, if I find any of your card, I can actually use it to buy something online. So maybe this is something a check that you have to put in place so that you'll be safe on the internet.
Okay, thank you. I know we have overspent, but I think it's an important topic. I wanted to ask the payment process you mentioned. You talked about the server, the gateway, the bank, the card. Okay, I will rephrase the question this way. Can a payment at some point not be traced? If, for example, I initiate legitimate transaction, and then can a payment not be traced at some point? And if it does, at what point can that happen?
It can be traced back to the bank. If you can actually follow all the processes, the bank can actually trace it for you. But the process is very difficult because they have to go through Visa and all through the payment platforms because they will not even be sure. Yeah, they're only seeing it that you are making a report.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I think we will take the last question for now from Engineer Simon. Please, can you briefly ask your question?
All right, thank you, Engineer Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all other protocols duly observed. Mine is actually not a question. It's just a response to the last question of the chairman. There's no payment that cannot be traced. It can also always be traced from point A to point B. Now, the challenges are basically that of the law. Now, if you are defrauded today, these fraudsters already know the law very well. So they use the law against you, and that's why you can't get back your funds most of the times. Not because it's not been traced. They will tell you where the money has come from. They'll tell you where the money has ended and where it has even been spent. Now the issue is the law has so many loopholes. So it's difficult for you sometimes to be able to follow through that process to be able to recover your funds, especially when it involves very large sum of money or when it involves a third party. It becomes very, very difficult for you to do that. Now, there's a reference code by which all the banks operate across the world. For every transaction, there's a 30-character reference that is automatically generated for each transaction from one point to another without that 30-character transaction reference. No transaction goes successful. So that is the overall global code that is being used to track your funds from each location. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Engineer Simon, for that comment. And thank you once again, our guest speaker, Samuel, for this interesting webinar. And I believe that we've all been enriched by today's webinar. And I think we can, if you have further questions, you can link up with Samuel and ask your question. If you're happy to drop maybe your email or contact detail, that for people to reach out if should they have more questions, that would really be helpful. Samuel, thank you so much. And the recording of this webinar will be on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back to the channel to revisit this webinar and also be to find out more about what we've learned today, and also keep checking our various social media handles for events that are going to be unveiled, or upcoming events for the next month, as well as some of our visits. Thank you very much for today. And I will hand over back to Mr. Chairman, Engineer Dr. Stephen Ugwanyi. Thank you, sir.